Welcome to ChristiTutionalist Politics Podcast, aka CTP, in association with TheLibertyBeacon.com, and I am your host, Joseph M. Leonard, and that's Lenard. CTP is your no muss, no fuss, just me, you, and occasional guest type podcast. I really appreciate you tuning in. As Graham Norton would say, let's get on with the show.
Hello, everybody. If you see behind the scenes video, you see I have my friend Ed Bonderenka of WAAMradio Your American Heritage show back with us. He was here last year for a special 9/11 show, and it just so happens to coincide that we're recording today, August the 3rd. He just got done broadcasting his show, Your American Heritage. So I'm thinking, well, this isn't going to be a 9/11 show. I did look. Wednesday is the day I normally drop my program, and it will be actually 9/11 that day. So while we won't be doing a purposefully and full intentful 9/11 show, I just wanted to open up with that to say, obviously, our thoughts and prayers are still out to any 9/11 survivors, maybe dealing with survivor's guilt, and those involved that joined and fought PTSD, dealing with now for their efforts in the war on terror. So while this will drop on 9/11, it isn't a 9/11 show. Welcome back to the show, Ed Bonderenka.
Who knows what's going to happen between today and 9/11, you know?
Yeah,
Man,
yeah.
it's a roller coaster. The last 2 weeks have been a roller coaster.
You ain't kidding. I mean, I've got some shows in the can, though, talking behind the scenes shop here, that aren't going to air until November. So, I mean, I'm out of ways.
Oh, yeah.
And like, yeah, Lord knows, I'm saving more. Like I've got a couple country music artists that'll be coming on. I'm saving more, guests that aren't direct political involvement for later days. So as the political, what hits the
Dust
fan,
settles. Oh, I was going to hope to say dust settles. Okay.
It won't really matter in regard to that particular show. There won't be any relation. But yeah, I wasn't, again, the main reason I wanted to have you back is really literally because this show, ChristiTutionalist Politics, is in part inspired by your show, Your American Heritage, as well as Rick's now retired Moment of Clarity, Bruce and Phil's Abolitionist Roundtable on WAAM in the Morning, Pastor Sean's The Intersection. This show is the intersection also, cross between faith and politics. So let's promote your show since you helped inspire mine.
Well, like anybody who's listened to you call into the show, say, why doesn't he just get his own show? So
yeah. Well, a friend of mine, Darlene, had said for like the last 10 years, you should be on the radio. You know a lot and you sure can talk. So indeed, yeah, like, yeah, why don't I do a podcast, right? I mean,
yeah. Yep.
But so,
and, podcasts, it's kind of blown me away. Podcasts have become, if I'm listening to the radio, it's because I'm not in a position to listen to a podcast at the moment. But if I'm listening to a podcast, it's normally a recording of a previously recorded radio show. So it's, I find, and I don't find video casts. I remember Pastor Rick wanted to do a vlog, which I believe he saw as similar to a video podcast, and I just didn't want to be on video that much.
Well, with that face of yours, that's understandable.
Exactly. I mean, I had a lot of general work done to just look appreciable, but
yeah.
The other thing is that it's hard to watch a video while you're driving, whereas I can I can listen to just the audio, but the tendency is to glance over and I'd just rather listen to somebody articulate something audibly.
Yeah. And of course I do both. I record in video so I could put it on BitChute, Brighteon, Rumble, and YouTube video channels because some people are visual and they want to see. And indeed, for the record, Ed is my friend. I'm not calling him ugly. I'm just joking. I'm just teasing him. I don't want his wife Sherry to be coming after me. But yeah, you've got to, the way I see it is, why limit it, right? You want to cover all the avenues so people can watch or listen how they want. Today's selfish attitude, unfortunate in this world, right? You've got to provide it any and every which way so they can insist on doing how they want it, not how you have it to present it. But indeed, both being Christians, going to make the obvious joke or pun. Give us the genesis of what was your creation of Your American Heritage show.
Well, I think going back a ways, I used to call into Bill Bennett frequently, and Bill Bennett would have me on. I was always blown away that he might have me on for 20 minutes or so, and not trying to get rid of me. And he always seemed to appreciate the things I had to say. And then there was this contest where you created an ad for voting for Republicans, and I won second place in that. And I went to Linda and Theron and a number of other people who read my blog, and I asked for votes. I think I rigged the election, speaking of rigging elections. And I remember talking to Theron on an overpass over I-94 because I didn't want to drive and talk. And so I'm talking to Theron on the air, asking people to vote for me. And a cop pulls up, starts knocking on the window to ask me what I'm doing while I'm on the air with Theron. So I won the contest and went to Washington, D.C. Sherry and I won, and we went to see Bill Bennett, had lunch with him. And when I got back, our friend, oh my goodness, Gary Wellings, he was doing the drift at the time. And he asked me to come in and sit in with him and audition for being a co-host. And I guess I passed. And so he asked me to stay with doing that. It was kind of interesting. As I left the house that day to go to the studio, Sherry asked me, do you think he knows Doug Wellings? Now, Doug Wellings is a guy that I had lunch with almost every day who owned a chain of Wendy's restaurants around here. And we just were very much in tune politically. And so as I'm leaving, all of a sudden I'm realizing, I'm looking at Gary and it's like, yeah, it could be. I said, do you know what Doug? That's my brother. They're like, how amazing, small world. So then I was doing that. And then actually I bought the paper, the Current from Gary, and we had a deal with Theron, and he advertised in the paper and he gave us the airtime in trade. And so when I shut the paper down, I lost the airtime. So can you not hear me? Oh,
you zoned out for a second, and your audio and video is off sync now, but you're back okay.
Oh, sorry about that.
The video you're talking isn't in tune with what I'm hearing, but I can still hear you. That's all that matters. Yeah,
like a Japanese Godzilla movie or something. Yeah, and I've got the face for it too. So, anyways, to carry on with a long and boring story, my wife at one time during COVID, she says, and I had been kicked out of my church, basically out of my position as Bible instructor, and so I didn't have any venue, you know what I mean, except calling in shows. And Sherry said, hey, why don't we look into getting you a radio show? And so I talked to Theron, and we talked about what it would cost. And so that's why Sherry is my sponsor. And I think it's almost 4 years now. It's amazing how the time flies, but I don't know how you feel about doing a show. I struggle. I really stress out because, trying to find a guest, wondering if they're going to show, wonder if it's going to be boring, wonder if we're going to run out of topics. I thought about that today with my guest. And at the end, I was like, I over prepped again, but you just never know. But then that's why I count on you to call in and take up airtime. You space it out. You've noticed that a few times and chipped in. So that's good. So yeah, that's basically the genesis of this. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And again, thank you for having done what you've done and what you, as what Dr. Dave Janda, thank you for what you've done, are doing, and will do. Right?
That's right. Yeah.
to steal his line, because
if I might,
you were an inspiration. Go on.
Thank you. If I might, I started out the show as one thing. Trump was president, and I felt that there was an attack on our culture and an attack on our history by the left, and that there were people who were not informed of the history and of the, like I like to say, our biblical and American heritage, both, because the Bible inspired our American heritage. And so I was just going to have on Bill Federer and, maybe I'll get Burton from Wall Builders or something like that to come on, other authors, and talk about the American experience. And instead, we had an election stolen from us. And so now it's a battle. And so the focus has become, what do we do to get our nation back as Christians? And I think number one is prayer.
Yeah, as I always say, I use the hashtag roar, and I joke, no,
Yeah.
It's not about Katy Perry roar video,
No.
right? Which is a good song, homage basically to Helen Reddy, I Am Woman, Hear Me Roar. I'll give her credit for it, but no, when I say roar, I mean restore our American Republic. We are not a mobocracy. We are supposed to be a meritocracy, even though the left turning us into ineptocracy and kleptocracy.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, as far as Aurora is concerned, my boss is the Lion of the tribe of Judah, and he's represented as Aslan in the Chronicles of Narnia. So there is that component there of roar, not the MGM lion.
Oh, yes, I like that. I got two things I made some notes. But before I forget, I made a note. Last week we were discussing whether you were going to still be in Virginia, and you record out of your hotel room. Luckily, you're back now, but you were going to potentially take a trip to Appomattox. Did you ever make it out while you were in Virginia?
I did not make it to Appomattox, and it's very interesting. I wanted to do that. It was too far to drive, and I had to read this book for this interview that I did with my guest today. And I was looking for a quiet place I could read it. And what happened was I ended up going to this Civil War park that was only a mile away from my hotel, but it turned out you couldn't see. It was where these gun emplacements were. They call it a battery. And this is Battery Franson. And the plant I was working on, the road it was on was called Battery Brook, or Brook Battery. So they're named after these gun emplacements overlooking the James River. But in neither place could you ever see the river anymore because of the trees that have grown up, and the conservationists won't let anybody cut them down. So, what's the point? So here I am going to this place that has signs where, yes, you see these pits here. That's where the gun emplacement was here. This is where over here. And you see nothing. And so I just drove away thinking I'll find another place in Richmond, and I'm doing Google Maps, and I see there's a boat launch. Well, at least I could see the James River, so I'm going to go down to the boat launch. When I went down to the boat launch, I saw this thing that said Henrico Park, not Enrico, like, the Italian or the Spanish, but Henrico Park. And I just, I wonder if I can read there. And I found a mini Greenfield village there. I had no idea, absolutely no idea I was going to go there. And I'm looking at this stockade, and I go to walk through, and there's a rope that says you have to pay admission first. Okay, so I go up to their visitor center. It's $13. I'm at a point in my life where I actually have $13 to spare. And so I didn't know what I was going to get into when I went in there. And when I went in, the first thing, this family was just getting the end of a lecture by one of the docents. And this guy's sitting there in colonial garb, We're talking about 1610 stuff. And there's firearms on the wall. There's matchlocks. There's helmets. There's leather vests. There's all these swords and daggers and weapons of war and blacksmithing articles. And this guy's telling the story of Henrico. Well, he's done and they leave. And then I get him all to myself. We talked for about an hour. And so we talked for about an hour and he let me handle one of the matchlocks. And he told me his wife actually has these built. She sells them. So she contracts out. He does the stocks. She contracts out the barrels. She contracts out the mechanisms. And then she assembles them. And he's telling me about all the intricacies of flintlocks, the English versus the Spanish versus the, it was really, so I called Rick, Dick Kupke. I called Dick Kupke, got him on the phone and says, you got to talk to this guy. So Dick's going to have him on my show. And then I'm going to have him on my show right after that. We're going to talk about the colonial period after Dick talks about guns. It was just, then I went on to the church and there's guys talking about colonial Christianity. Then I went to a recreation of the home that Pocahontas lived in when she was being groomed as for the English. And the lady there was really intelligent, smart, bright. And she's talking, all these people are conservatives, by the way. Although they couldn't come out with it. When I got to them afterwards, because I had them alone, you give a few buzzwords and find out where they're coming from, right? So she's telling me about Pocahontas was actually, she married in Henrico, not in Jamestown. I always thought it was in Jamestown. But Henrico was an outreach of Jamestown itself, that the Virginia company saw that Jamestown was actually having a lot of problems and may not make it. So they needed to open up a new place and they opened up Henrico. But then when Jamestown started waxing again instead of waning, they took their focus off of Henrico, although it still stayed. It didn't become the new Jamestown and actually kind of got lost to history, even though it was a center for the farmers who were around there. Quite an interesting story around all that, all because I went for a place to read a book.
Isn't that great? And
what a blessing.
Two things for Ed's in Ypsilanti. I'm in Wyandotte, both suburbs of Detroit. He mentioned Greenfield Village. That reference will be lost on everybody, so we'll explain it. It's a place in Dearborn, Michigan, that is a not an amusement park, but a historical park where they relocated things like Edison's initial
his Menlo Park laboratory.
Yeah,
and his factory. And the boarding house for his engineers. They brought that there too.
Yeah, but I didn't know what to call them, so thank you for chiming in. But yeah, all these historical buildings from all over places have been painstakingly put on, you can occasionally see a house moving down the road on the flatbed, but yeah, they painstakingly moved even a big windmill that's there. I don't know the significance of it, but a lot of historic properties relocated to Greenfield Village in Dearborn. If you're ever in Detroit, you got to go there.
When I was on the plane flying back from Virginia, I'm sitting next to a guy, big guy, and he's reading a book on the Wright brothers. And I says, "Oh, are you from this area? Are you from Detroit?" He says, "No, I'm not. I'm just, going to stay there a while for a family event and then move on." I says, well, if you're interested in the Wright brothers, have you ever heard of Greenfield Village? Because their bicycle shop is in Greenfield Village, So you talk about historical appropriations. Henry Ford went all around the country and ripped these sites from their historical, positions and brought them to basically a situation which was a rural area in Dearborn. At that time, because he wanted people to have a view of the rural roots of America. That was his hope. I mean, the guy just like, thank you, Jesus, for Henry Ford, besides the Model A. Yeah, and then there's the museum.
Yeah, and the museum, yes, also. You got to see that, too, while you spend a day in the village, spend another day in the museum, and there is an actual working farm on Greenfield Village. Yeah. And the other reference, you mentioned Dick Kupke. He's the host of Trigger Talk on WAAM Radio. 2 hours, but it's broken up. 11 a.m. Eastern, and then the second hour, 1, which was Pastor Rick Dietering's old moment of clarity hour. Dick's now taken that over as a second hour from 1 to 2, right before your show, which is 1400 Eastern time. And before I forget, people could go, obviously, to WAAMradio.com, and there's a listen live button there, which is a whole fiasco. We won't go behind. They recently changed the streaming. I was like, where'd the station go? It's not playing. Find out they changed the streaming.
I got text during my broadcast today. The stream's not working because it kind of got broke. TuneIn wasn't working. Streamer wasn't working. Usually I have my wife on Simple Radio, and she listens in the kitchen, and that wasn't working. I had to do the Live 365, I think it's called, put that app on her phone, but Theron's working on that. Yeah, it's like you said, a fiasco. It should all get soon.
But at any rate, now back to where from our earlier conversation that I wrote down, like I spoke to on your show today with your guest, because you were talking about history and the modern church, many of which have gone to really being the church of the deep state, or church of woke, not Church of Christ anymore. They are of the world, not of Christ in the world. But this difference of community and communism, the foundations are biblical on community, individualism, personal freedoms, personal responsibilities, voluntary charity, right, to be our brother's keeper, versus this bastardization of community, which is communism, which is forced, which is theft and redistribution. It's not biblical. The fundamental transformation of America away from our biblical roots to this new communism.
Yes, exactly. You know, I was listening to Bill Whittle's podcast, which I really enjoy, and one of his co-hosts was talking about, I think, something Thomas Sowell might have said, but regardless, it's that we live in a thank you society, not a thank you, you're welcome society. And what that means is that when you do a transaction, you go into a store and the guy owns a store, and you buy a candy bar, and he hands you the candy bar and you say thank you, and you hand him his money and he says thank you. It's transactional, and you've both gotten something out of the bargain. Whereas in a socialist society, you go to the government and you say thank you, and they say you're welcome. If they even say that.
Right.
Because they're not thanking you, they took from you.
Right. Yeah, they stole it from you to begin with.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
Now, you said something on the show I hadn't heard before, so let's cover it. The Warren quote about AFFIRM. Explain that.
Well, I was talking to Megan Basham, who wrote the book Shepherds for Sale. And as you know, on my show, quite a bit I've been harping on since COVID. I've been harping on pastors who shut down their churches and the congregations that put up with it. And urging people to talk to their pastors and perhaps urge them to get involved politically, because this is like, I played the clip of Tucker Carlson. There's a vast spiritual battle going on that manifests itself as a political battle. It's good versus evil. It really is end time stuff. It's Ghostbusters stuff. It's Zool. I mean, that's really happening, and people will suspend their imagination and watch Ghostbusters and say, ooh, wouldn't it be something if it was like that? I'm telling you, it's like that. It's not Zool, it's Satan. This is not the church lady. Could it be Satan? No, it's not. It's Satan, and he's trying to take over. He's trying to hold off. He's trying to destroy the world that Christ made, because I don't know how he can think that he's going to get away with it. But regardless, he's got minions and puppets that are coming against us, and they've got to destroy the Christian church. And one way of doing that, in her book, she actually talks about and writes about, I should say, and gives examples of people that are funding certain evangelical organizations with an idea towards getting them to espouse the New Green Deal, gay rights. It seems to have affected Warren himself, Rick Warren, and Andy Stanley. It's like, man, I've listened to Charles Stanley for a number of years, record him on TV and then watch him later, and always a blessing. And knew there was something going on with his son because I'd Google his name once in a while and find out that, his son and he are on the outs. Well, okay, Billy Graham's son, Franklin, was, ran away from him for a while. And Jim, focus on the family.
Baker? Not Jim Baker.
No, not Jim Baker. Focus on the family. James Dobson's son. He was supposed to take over, and there were problems with him. And then he came back to the Lord. Franklin Graham came back. Andy Stanley is a problem because he's got the largest congregation, which is 8. It's a huge megachurch, which 8 satellite churches, so he's like his own mini denomination. And he has decided, and I've got it in my notes somewhere here, I could actually quote it to you if I pull that up. Andy Stanley, the son of Charles Stanley, said the decision of same-sex couples to marry is, quote, their decision. Our decision as a group of local churches is how we are going to respond to their decisions. Stanley said North Point, his church, has taken the position that it will welcome people regardless of their starting point, regardless of their past, regardless of their current circumstances. Our message is come and see and come sit with me. Now, I'm good with that up to a point. Like a Baptist friend of mine said once, if we had a lady come to our church and she was a prostitute and come off the street and she was dressed like a prostitute, she's welcome. She doesn't have to sit in the back of the church. She can sit in the front of the church. But we're not going to put up with it week after week after week. We're not going to affirm her lifestyle. We're going to say, no, you've got a problem. You've got a problem. We can help you with that problem. Jesus can help you with that problem. Let us help you with that problem. And Rick Warren, the same thing, said, we are here to affirm. No, you're not here to affirm. You're here to challenge demonic lifestyles. And, they may not be, quote unquote, worshiping demons, but it's a demonic influenced lifestyle. When you see trans dancing in front of kids in a library and looking garish and comical, and something is wrong here. Something is radically wrong. It's a spiritual battle.
That's the difference that I coined between Billy, not going to give his last name, gay man. That is not all in who he is. Unlike modern leftists, the rainbow alphabet mafia, that is their entire identity. They are not tolerance and acceptance. They are gaytivists engaging in gaytivism. They want to normalize and legalize pedophilia. That is a whole different thing. I got a show, a regular Saturday monologue show that I go into this. Again, tolerance and acceptance is one thing because final judgment, condemnation is reserved for the Lord, not me. So if you could give that whole Warren quote like you did on the show, because like you said, you're with him and I'm with him. I'm for tolerance and acceptance to a degree, but at some point there is a line that it has to stop. And as you said, that word affirm, no way in hell do I affirm your lifestyle. I can tolerate it. I can accept it if it's you. But when it becomes your sole and only focus in life, that's a red line that I will not cross.
Yeah, well, the Warren quote is, as I tearfully type these words, I publicly apologize to every member of the gay community. My silence and lack of caring has done you harm. I'm so sorry, and I repent. I accept you. I love you. I affirm you. Well, like I said, I could do 2 out of 3. I can accept you. I can love you like Jesus loves you. He accepts you as you are, with
wants better for you.
That you will change. Exactly. But if I affirm you, I'm telling you everything's all right in your life, and it ain't. It just ain't. But you know what? I'm not going to stone you. I'm not going to behead you. I'm not going to hang you and throw you off a bridge like they would in, Tehran or Gaza. Yeah, exactly. No, not me.
Queers for Palestine, all kinds of memes, right? They literally attack Christians in America who love them, but will tolerate but not affirm their lifestyle. But we're not stoning them to death. But Palestinian Muslims, the Hamas terrorists, are Shiite sect absolutists who would stone them to death. So they attack Christians here who just say, we support traditional marriage. Oh my God, you can't do that. But them stoning gays, look the other way. Look the other way. We support the terrorists.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's crazy. I mean, and when you see these Hamas terrorists defacing our public monuments, and when you see them interrupting meetings, and public meetings, you got to ask yourself, why are the J6ers in jail? Once again, why? Oh, because they're Christians. That's why they're in jail. Invariably, the J6ers, I've had a number of them on my show. They hold prayer meetings. They hold Bible studies. They have choir. Can you imagine a whole, a cell block, having a choir, each guy in or a couple guys in their own cell. But it's not a bed of roses at all. Some of them have been Jake Lang for, I don't know, almost 2.5 years now has been in prison without being charged. I mean, there's no sentence on him, and he's in solitary confinement in the same facility that Epstein was in. That there's something a little bit wrong about that.
Clear violation of due process and right to a speedy trial. They ain't even charging and trying to try him. They just got him locked up. And you're right, but this is like the Wuhan hysteria. Some good will come from it. God works in mysterious ways, right? Like the Wuhan hysteria, the Zoom schooling, parents finally saw and awakened from their woke stupor. And the Jan 6ers, now we already know there are prison ministries, but they are taking it to whole new levels. And
they are becoming a prison ministry.
They are God's point and purpose in this bad.
And they're being battle hardened. Just wait till they get out of jail. Wait till they get out of jail. Oh, Biden DOJ, what you brought upon yourself. Oh, you meant it for harm, but God meant it for good. That's a quote.
Amen. Amen. Exactly. Well, I try to keep my shows around the 30-minute mark, so we're there. So let me.
Because I run out of words.
Oh, okay. Well, I was going to open it up to you. If anything you want to throw out there in closing.
Well, just I appreciate your giving me this opportunity to talk to your audience, and it's been interesting. And your podcast is needed. ChristiTutional Politics. I like the title. And again, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Again, yeah, thank you again, my brother, my friend, Ed Bonderenka on ChristiTutionalist Politics. Again, you can find him at WAAMradio.com, as well as others, I or we together. I don't want to say collectively. Oh my God, I don't want to use that word.
Spotify.
Yeah. Other people we've mentioned that are on WAAM, you could go to WAAMradio.com. There's a shows link. Look at all the shows. There's a podcast link. You created a shortcut, tinyurl.com/WAAMradio, where people can jump short link to the Listen Live page. I years ago created tinyurl.com. I love that service. tinyurl.com/YAH archives to take you to, well, I think it's your Spotify page. Yeah, so YAH for Your American Heritage. tinyurl.com YAH archives. So
I can't create a tiny URL without thinking of you.
oh,
When I made that, I thought this is what Joe would do if he hasn't done it already. Yep.
I thought I tried /WAAMradio and it was already taken. I couldn't use it, but
Yeah, probably pointed to the wrong stream anyhow. So
yeah, because I have I think tinyurl.com/WAAM listen live or something like that. But that won't be valid anymore because it goes to the mainstream stream, which won't work anymore. So forget that last one.
it was hard to work in the first place. So I'm glad they replaced it. So Joe, it was good talking with you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm glad you came by. Thanks again for taking the time. I really appreciate it. Take care. God bless, brother.
Thank you for having tuned in for ChristiTutionalist Politics show. If you haven't already, please check out my primary internationally available book, Terror Strikes, coming soon to a city near you. Available anywhere books are sold. If you have locally run bookstores still near you, they can order it for you, or autographed copies are available online direct from me via terrorstrikes.info/shop. Be sure to check out more about today's discussion at thelibertybeacon.com, where my articles drop every Saturday. And let me remind, over time, the fancy high production items will come. But for now, for starters, it's just you as a very appreciated listener by me. All substance, no fluff. No fancy high production intro or inserts, at least yet, just straight to key discussion points. A show that looks at a variety of topics, mostly politics, through a Christian U.S. constitutionalist lens. So again, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Take care. God bless. Like and subscribe to ChristiTutionalist Politics podcast and share episodes. We need your help to grow the show.